Did you know that despite getting raises every year, most Canadians are actually getting poorer? Here's the math they don't want you to see. Over the past decade, the average Canadian salary increased 2 to 3% annually. Sounds reasonable, right? But during that same period, housing costs increased 8 to 12% per year. Groceries increased 5 to 7%. Energy costs increased 6 to 10%. Your wage increase, 3%. Everything you need to survive, 8 to 12%. This creates negative real income growth. You're mathematically losing purchasing power every single year, even with promotions and raises. But here's what's disturbing. The system trains you to feel grateful for that 3% raise. You celebrate it. You think you're moving forward. Meanwhile, business owners and investors protect themselves differently. Their assets appreciate with inflation. Their dividends increase. Their wealth grows faster than their expenses. Employers benefit from this wage inflation gap because labor costs stay low while their products increase in price. The government benefits because you stay dependent on employment income, which they tax heavily. This is why working harder won't change your financial situation. The math simply doesn't work in your favor, but now you see it.
Nobody wants to say this, but Canada is getting poorer. Not in absolute terms, in relative terms, by purchasing power. What your money actually buys, Canada is sliding down the rich country ladder. We used to punch near the top of developed nations. Now we're sitting around 30th of OECD nations. And this gap is growing. The US got richer, Europe standardized, Canada has stalled. Our incomes per person barely moved. Our productivity has fallen behind, and our cost of living has exploded. Here's the real problem. Our economy still grows, but mostly because we add more people, not because each person is getting richer. More GDP, less per person. That's how a country looks successful on paper, while people feel poorer in real life. This isn't a crash, it's a quiet decline. And quiet declines are the most dangerous kind, because by the time people notice, they're already locked in.
1 in 4 Canadians are living in poverty. Let that sink in. Not a war zone. This is in Canada. This country isn't broken. It is working exactly as designed. They crushed your wages. They inflated your assets. They taxed food, fuel, housing, everything that you need to live. And then the people in charge looked at the damage and said, oh wow, the people are struggling. No fucking shit. Here's the part that nobody wants to say. Poverty is not a bug in this country. It's leverage. When people are broke, they're quiet. When they're desperate, they comply. And when they're dependent, they don't repel. That is why the solution is never lower costs or higher wages. It's a benefit. A leash, just enough to survive, but never enough to escape. And if you work harder, they tax you more. And if you save, inflation robs you. And if you complain, they shame you. So yes, 1 in 4 Canadians are living in poverty. And if you're still playing by the old rules, you are next. And if anybody still has faith in this current leadership, I don't know what to tell you. You must be extremely selfish or a dumbass libtard.
Hey Canada, what's new with you? Something crazy is gonna happen? Because their population is not gonna grow at all this year for the second year in a row. Wait, what? What's happening? So for like 40 years, our population grew like 1% every year, which is like normal. But then starting 2015, the immigration started to increase more and more. In 2022, we had more than 1 million people in a single year. That's a lot for you. And then in 2023, we added 1.2 million. The cities were filling up. But at the same time, housing costs increased, rent was super expensive, and hospitals were full. So we were like, okay, we need to stop immigration and start kicking some people out. And did that decrease the population at all? Well, it didn't decrease it, but in 2025, we had 0 population growth. And apparently in 2026, we will also have 0 population growth. So from 2 million people in 2 years to 0 in 2 years? Yeah, but we really needed to do that change. But it's still crazy. Well, hopefully that works out for you, Canada.
Alright guys, welcome back once again to the channel. I hope you are doing great wherever you are watching this episode from. Now, Canadians are being outraged after realizing that they are becoming broke and poorer every day. In Canada right now, they possess everything possible that makes a normal Canadian who is not in the billionaires club to become more poorer. I mean, inflation, hyperinflation, the cost of living, overtaxation, they're being taxed to the core. the cost of groceries, gas, the cost of rent. Landlords are just waking up in the morning and decide, you know what, this month we are going to increase rent. And unfortunately, some of these Canadians, they are working 2 to 3 jobs a day so that they can at least be able to cope up with this wrath of Canada's economy. They are complaining, they are outraged and crashing out over the high cost of living and realizing they are being broke and they possess everything that's make a normal Canadian become poorer. All this happening under the Liberal government. And what's more is even that they are bailing out other countries while real Canadians are suffering. Let's watch these videos that I've compiled for you guys, then we shall be talking about it.
How the fuck does this make any sense? Our food prices in Canada are rising 50% faster than in the US. 2.2 million Canadians visited a food bank in a single month. That's the highest number in Canadian history. 1 in 5 of those Canadians have jobs but still can't put food on the table. 40% of Canadians are now facing food insecurities. 1 in 4 kids are now going hungry in Canada. Guys, this is not Canada we grew up in. This is fast becoming a third world country and they're pulling the rug right underneath our feet. This is what 10 years of Liberal leadership has done to the country. And let me make one thing clear. This isn't about left or right anymore. It's not Liberal versus Conservative anymore. It's Canadians versus the collapse. It's about people versus poverty. I don't care what color your lawn sign is. I'm a conservative, and if conservatives were in power for 10 years and Canada looked like this, I will be voting Liberal tomorrow. This isn't politics anymore. It's survival. We need to come together as Canadians, lock arms, and help each other. Stop waiting for the government to save you and turn your back on your neighbor because they voted different color than you. Because the current government isn't for you. The people are for the people. It's time to take this country back. Before more families end up on the street, before kids go to bed hungry, before we completely lose what Canada we once knew. This isn't about left or right anymore. It's about saving what's left.
You crunch the numbers, what stood out?
Oh, wow. I think looking at the numbers, it looks like a trip to the grocery store is like a punch in the gut. How's that? You know, we asked Canadians the areas that they'd like to see reduce costs, like where they'd like to try to save money, at least in 2026. Groceries, by a country mile, at the top of the list in terms of where they'd like to see a little bit of help. You know, you can see 52%, followed by housing at around 23, and then healthcare at 9. And it speaks to the pressure that Canadians are under and how groceries are at the top of the list, significantly ahead of things like housing and healthcare and fuel and entertainment, all those things, as a focus to save money.
And that we need to eat. And that says a lot that you're having to cut back on what you spend to buy food.
Yeah. You know, the interesting thing, Marcia, is that when we look at the regional numbers, the prairies, which is the breadbasket, why don't we just say the breadbasket of the country, their worry or concern about groceries and looking to reduce the cost of groceries, nationally it's at 52. In the prairies, it ramps up to 61. The other thing, Marcia, that really popped in terms of the numbers for me, which really stood out, young people and housing. Like the national average in terms of, you know, wanting to save or reduce costs on housing was 24. That jumps to 32% among young people. Young people, those people under 35 years of age, were the most likely to be worried about housing and wanting to see and look at strategies to reduce costs for 2026.
So what message does this send to the governing Liberals? Of course, we heard the GST break announced earlier this week, but does it end there, Tom? Or excuse me, Nick?
No, I don't think it ends there. I think this is actually a message for the Liberals and the Conservatives. You know, the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre have been focusing on what I'll say meat and potatoes issues like groceries and the cost of housing and stuff like that. They're way ahead of the curve, ahead of the Liberals for sure on that. And the Liberals are playing catch up. Maybe that explains why the Carney government has recently had this announcement related to a little more relief and help on Canadians related to groceries and the rising cost of living. I think this is going to be one of the key battlegrounds. Yes, Canadians are worried about Donald Trump and trade with the U.S., get past that, it's all about pocketbook issues. It's all about paying for the bills. And at the very top of it are groceries, followed by housing.
I don't think people realize how fast inflation is slowly rising because of how unconscious we all are right now. For example, I worked at McDonald's for like 6 years, so I know the prices pretty well, right? Last year, a medium chocolate milkshake was $4.20, which is already pretty expensive. A year later, it is now $5.65. How the hell is 3 hash browns $9? Are you seriously trying to tell me 1 hash brown is $3 each? Yet they're already importing a shit ton of slave labor to cut down costs. 1 pound sack of potatoes is around $3. Canada grows a shit ton of potatoes in this country. There is no reason for prices to be this high. It makes absolutely no sense. And people forget every time you spend money, you're paying a little bit of that to the government. We have 40 million people in this country, all buying things all the time. So think about just in one day, how much tax revenue the government makes just by us spending. We're basically paying the government every single time we spend money, plus all the money they take off of our paychecks. And then when you find out that that money is going overseas for some LGBTQ $30 million tax haven project in Africa, you wonder why everyday people are getting upset and waking up. This government is so corrupt. They are taxing us to death. They are making things so expensive for the everyday working person. It is absolutely out of control now. People need to start thinking about the numbers and realizing this shit. That in itself will make you lean away from your left-leaning ideas of let's just spend more money. Let's throw more money at NGOs. Let's throw more money at government programs when you're not even thinking about all the money that they're already getting.
Grocery prices have gone up in Canada, and some Canadians are having to make some tough choices as a result. According to Proof, a research group out of the University of Toronto, more than 1 in 4 Canadians are facing food insecurity, inadequate access to food. Food insecurity has a whole list of negative health consequences, and according to Matt Noble, the head of the Toronto Vegetarian Food Bank, it can shorten people's lives by several years. Food insecurity is caused by the high cost of living and inadequate pay and social assistance rates. And recent food price increases aren't making things any easier. By using a tool developed by the Hoser Grocery Tracker, Press Progress was able to identify some of the worst offenders in terms of grocery items that increased in price over the past year. Some item price increases went as high as 90%. Read the full story and check out some of the price increases on these items at our website, pressprogress.ca.
We need to talk about the difference in salary between the States and Canada. Because what do you mean someone in the States who occupies the same role as me in the same company has twice my pay? How does that work? And some of my friends are telling me, oh, but that's because, their cost of living is so high. Bro, it's not about that. Like, yeah, I get it. It's expensive, you got bills to pay. But twice the salary? That's crazy, bro. But hold on. Now you're gonna convert USD to Canadian. So that's more than twice my salary. Since we're on the subject, let's talk about Montreal. Why are we being paid so little? My friends back in Toronto, they're being paid more than me. What did Quebec do wrong? What did we do wrong?
This explains why Canadians have never felt so poor. Canada is the per capita economic growth laggard for the last 10 years. Look at this. 0.5% annualized GDP growth per capita. Look at all the other countries. This is absolutely pathetic. Look at the United States. This is because of our government and their horrific policies around immigration, around our economy, around investing in innovation, around how we treat capital gains and try to bring in and attract business investment. This speaks to all of the failed strategies and plays that this government has deployed. It has been a total disaster. And that is why Canadians have never felt so poor. High taxes, services that are failing us, an economy that is failing us. We've had 8 quarters of negative GDP per capita growth. This government, what they've done is bring in 5 million people over the last 5 or 6 years to boost gross GDP growth, to make it look like we're doing okay, but we are not doing okay. Every single person in Canada has gotten poorer in comparison to every other country here. And considering we are neighbors to the United States, I think this is the biggest missed opportunity in the G20. Our government has totally fumbled the ball and we need to hold them accountable because this is unacceptable.
So why is Canada falling behind? It's not one thing. It's a stack of slow problems. First is productivity. For decades, Canada has produced far less per worker than the United States, and the gap keeps widening. I also chalk this up to people not getting reward for hard work anymore. People work. They still can't afford housing. They still can't afford their basic goods. Second is investment. Businesses invest less here. Less machinery, less innovation, less scaling. That means slower wage growth. Beyond that, our real estate market takes a good chunk of the investment capital in the country, disproportionately compared to other G7 nations. Third is population growth. Canada is growing fast, but when population rises faster than productivity, income per person stalls. We're bringing in trained engineers, doctors, lawyers to have them drive Uber and deliver our food. It's ridiculous, and it's been called slavery by the UN. They have directly criticized our temporary foreign workers program. Look that up. You'll be surprised. The pie gets bigger, but slices don't. And fourth, the big one no one wants to admit, we built an economy on assets, housing, land, debt-fueled growth. Great if you already own assets, like the baby boomer generation. Not if you're trying to build wealth. That's how you get a country that looks rich, but feels stuck. And unless productivity changes, the gap doesn't close on its own.
Genuinely, how is anybody affording life right now in Ontario? Like, I've always known that I wanted to leave Canada at some point, but these days it's more and more brain fart, sorry. These days it's just more and more on my brain every single day that I wake up. I'm just really hating it here. The weather is shit. We barely see the sun, and when it does come out, it's still not warm. We get hot weather for 3 months out of the year, if we're lucky, 4.5 or 3.5. Groceries are the cost of your mortgage or your rent. Mortgage and rent are extremely high. Then you have to pay for car insurance. And then you have to pay for a car payment if you don't own your vehicle. Then you got to pay expensive ass utilities. And people say, oh, well, you have free healthcare. But realistically, I would rather pay for freaking healthcare at this point, because nobody has a family doctor here. And when you do go see the doctor, you're in the waiting room for about 2 hours waiting for the damn doctor. Education is free, but it's shit. The education in North America is so bad. And now the government is taking away the money that they were giving people to help them to go to post-secondary. So it's like, what do we really have going on here for anybody to want to live here? I just don't get it. Coming to live in Canada is like signing up for depression for the rest of your life and signing up to work to die.
You know, when Canadians see such news that the Liberal government has just bailed Ukraine with another 2 billion, and they are the ones who are feeling the wrath of the economy, it makes them outraged, pissed off, and want to go to election anytime soon and maybe do something about it. Because tell me why people are still suffering. People are living in poverty, not unless you are in the billionaires club. High cost of living is driving them crazy. They are being drowned or in overtaxation, inflation. The groceries to them, it's now becoming like a luxury. Some of them even have to choose whether to eat the 3-course meal or skip 2. Some of them are choosing not to rent but rather live in their cars. And all this solution should be solved with taxpayer money. And the fact that they are being taxed to the core, it means that Canada has got a lot of money to solve the problems. But now what the Liberal government does is that it does not prioritize Canadians' interest at all. They just bail out other countries and give billions and billions of dollars to other countries, while real Canadians who are paying taxes to raise these billions so that they can solve these problems they are having, they don't care about them at all. They should come up with policies that says put Canadians first, because right now when you see all these things happening, you shudder to think, is Canada really a first world country. Why are the people complaining too much? And if they are complaining, do they really does this really happens, or they are just hating on the Liberal government? But guys, let me tell you something. These people are not crazy. These Canadians are not crazy. They are not insane. Like they are not mad people. They are experiencing this. And when you hear them complaining about this all over social media, it means that this is an issue that is affecting them. They are getting poorer and becoming broke in their country, that they pay huge amount of taxes and their money are being used to bail other countries, which does not even benefit them. So when you see them complaining, it's not like they are hating on the Liberal government. No, they are just calling them out to remind them that we are paying taxes, but we are not seeing where our taxes are going. Canadians being broke and being poorer in a first world country is so abnormal to me. These people struggling with housing, struggling with high cost of living, groceries, they are even begging the government to reduce the cost of groceries. People are going shopping, and then when you are being given the receipt or the bill to pay, you nearly faint because you have bought few items, but the bill comes to thousands of dollars, and you shudder to think, will you buy groceries? Will you pay for rent? Will you buy gas with your one job or two or three jobs? You working extra hours and extra shifts so that you can just make end meets, and then when you receive the salary, you are being taxed to the core. These are just some of the things that makes people in a country, not even in Canada alone, but people in other countries outraged and now start demanding for change. Now, it's the work of the Liberal government to sit down and listen to people's cries, Canadians' cries, because if they refuse to pay taxes, of which they are being forced to pay anyway, this government will not have money to flex to other countries that we have huge amount of dollars we want to bail you out or give you or aid you. They should come up with policies that puts Canadians first. But those are just my opinions or what I think about the whole situation. Tell me what you think in the comment section. Let's have a pretty discussion, and subscribe this channel, and see you in the next video.